Almost spilled there. Good morning. Welcome in. You're on the lifeboat. This is Captain Calhoun speaking, and we have got a good show planned for you today. Thank you for your patience on my arrival. Nature called my phone. I had to pick that thing up. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of emails that make me think we don't necessarily understand boundaries yet. So we're going to talk about it some more. And I thought of a really great metaphor, a metaphor we can all get behind. And we'll get into it. Shannon Smith, good morning. Good to see you. Brianna Miller, hello. Rocket Queen. Dale Cox, Millie the Dandelion, TKK. You guys are making fun of me. It's okay. I accept this. Nicole Luongo, hello. Welcome in. Yadira, please hold. Your captain has an important message for you. Hit that like, subscribe, and the bell for notifications. Yeah, guys, it's a good morning so far. It's a good morning. Dale Cox, Janet G, good to see you guys. Samantha Askey, Yolanda, hello. Am I your favorite white child? That's so cool. I'm into that. Ben Eberhard, hello. Ben from last night. Tommy Stig Social Club, checking out the live today. How are you? I'm very well. Welcome aboard. Shout out to Tommy Stiggs. We love that guy. Hope he's doing well. I'm doing very well. How are you, Ben? Kellyanne, hello there. I might need to blow my nose, folks. Holy crap. I don't know. Maybe it's the change in the seasons, but I'm feeling strange. I feel great, but my body's going through some changes for sure. Maybe there's some allergens in the airs or something. I don't know. Arabian Bard, Flick Fox, good to see you. So we've all seen Lord of the Rings, right? We've all seen that scene where Gandalf puts his man pants on and he says, "You shall not pass." Well, that's a boundary. Gandalf is setting a boundary, and the Balrog is his opponent, right? The big servant of Morgoth, the big fiery demon thing, is only concerned with how it can move forward, right? It doesn't really acknowledge the boundary, right? It kind of like scoffs. It like looks at him for a second and then tries to move forward anyways, right? Right through the boundary. Well, then the bridge collapses. Well, the bridge is trust. The bridge is whatever relationship we're dealing with, right? Wherever we're setting this boundary, the bridge is the ground that we stand on with whoever we're setting the boundary with, right? Now, if we don't respect the boundary and the bridge collapses, what does that mean for this relationship? What does that mean for, obviously trust is out the window. If you understand boundaries, then how could you trust someone that just wants to trample on yours, right? When you set a boundary and someone disregards it, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And often we just kind of accept it as normal interaction, which it's not, right? It may be normalized, but it's self-centered. Feeling like you're the center of the universe isn't sustainable. You know what I mean? And I think that the Balrog really was only thinking of itself, right? It paid no mind to the boundary that Gandalf set. Obviously it's an evil being, right? And Gandalf is good and they're diatomically opposed, right? So it is a fantasy, it is a metaphor, but you get it. You totally get it, right? If I set a boundary and someone just tries to walk right through it, there's no trust anymore. There's no foundation for us anymore. Like that act did a lot of damage, and they say trust is a lot easier to break than it is to gain, right? So I would think that observing boundaries would be pretty important. Now that we know of this concept, I would think that, observing boundaries in our space moving forward becomes really important, right? Especially if we're someone that, maybe I'm saying to myself, I didn't really understand boundaries, or maybe I'm saying to myself, oh, this is like a semi-new concept. If it's not something that you deal with every day, if it's not something that you're thinking about all the time, I would think that this would now, become more prevalent, because it happens every day. It happens all over the place, everywhere you go. Boundaries are being set and also being ignored. And I don't think a lot of people treat it the way that it deserves to be treated. Now, there's always outliers, right? But when Gandalf slaps the staff down, he does it for a reason. He's doing his best. When Gandalf puts the staff down, it's not arbitrarily, right? He's looking out for himself. He may be, who knows? He may be looking out for the whole fellowship. Who knows? Who knows? TKK says, I feel that at this moment of time, boundaries are being broken left and right, Spanx. I'm right there with you, TKK. I thought it would be very apt to talk about this today. Thought it would be very apt to talk about this. Puka Vista, good morning. Is that an old-time coffee pot? This is a French press of the 32-liter variety, I believe. Maybe liter is the wrong word, 32 ounce. I guess it is an old school coffee pot. I have to get a tissue, guys. I can't do it. Hold on. Wowie zowie. Wowie zowie. Do you ever just say to yourself, wowie zowie? My sneezes are pretty loud and violent, but my blowing my nose isn't so bad. We have some serious nose cannons in my family. There are some people in my family that have very loud schnozzes, and I think I made off like a bandit when it comes to that. Can't say that you do. Well, it's pretty fun. You should try it sometime. Wowie zowie. Oh, that reminds me. I'm going to put some tincture in this coffee. I'm getting, it's growing on me, the tincture in the coffee. I'm also running out of, what's it called? I'm going to do, working our way up here. For those that don't know, this is capsaicin tincture. This is not psychoactive. It's not a drug. Capsaicin is the oil in peppers that makes them spicy. So I just spiced my coffee up. Why would I do that, you might ask? Well, because I'm crazy like that. No, because I like it. It kind of gets my senses moving in the morning. Chili in hot chocolate is amazing too. I'm going to have to try that the next time I go snowboarding. The snow season is coming. So you guys will 100% get to see me streaming from the snowy land of Utah in the winter. I'm going to definitely 100% have to go hit the mountains with my buds. So you get to see me all geared up. It'll be fun. Anyways, back to the matter at hand here. Boundaries, guys. Boundaries. Now, I don't think it would make for a very good fantasy film or book if, Gandalf set the boundary and the Balrog was like, okay, I can respect that, right? That wouldn't make for a very good movie, but that is how boundaries are supposed to work, right? The bridge isn't supposed to collapse, right? The ground we're standing on isn't supposed to fall away. When I set a boundary, it's intended to protect myself, but also its intention is to understand each other. Setting a boundary isn't get away from me. I mean, it can be, but in general, your most run-of-the-mill boundaries are, I can't have this. Can we find a place to exist in that's not that? Does that make sense? Right? So my boundary isn't necessarily saying, get the heck out of here. It's saying, please don't cross this line, right? This is very uncomfortable for me. Don't come over here, and then we can find a place to exist. We can find a way to interact. We can find a foundation for our relationship, for this event, for whatever we're setting a boundary with, to exist properly, to exist amiably, right? To move forward in a way that we're both comfortable. Body Illusion, Spanx, Others Restrained is ready to paint. Your painting show helped him so much the other day. Thank you for the connection. Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that. I 100% am going to paint today. I realized that I'll burn out of supplies and probably motivation if I paint every day. So I think I'm going to do it 3 times a week. We will do it today. And then my dad's going to take me down to the Hobby Lobby and we're going to get some more canvases later this week. So 100% tune in later today. I'm going to try the planet again. We're going to do it differently. Why does it sound so loud? Bluetooth is a novel concept, but I don't think that it is very effective. Gail Raishan, good to see you. Good morning. Welcome aboard. Yes, access granted. Was that the way that they say that? I don't know if that's the way they say that. Your boyfriend definitely has grandpa sneezes. Yeah, there are some pretty loud sneezes in my family, I have to say. Yeah, whatever you're into, Ben, it's all good. We are a recovery focused channel, but we don't discriminate, right? Complete abstinence is not something that everyone can abide by, especially when it comes to certain substances. I think it's a little bit harder. So we're non-judgmental. I'm sure that you're not the only person on the boat that drinks, my friend. So welcome aboard. Absolutely, you have access granted. There's another way to say that that's more slick than I was going for, but that's what came out of my mouth. So we're gonna have to deal with access granted, I guess. Like you got a key card, you know? Beep. But yeah, boundaries, guys. I set boundaries like subconsciously. Maybe subconscious is the wrong word, but I set boundaries without realizing it now. It's become a part of my day to day, right? If I run into a situation where boundaries aren't necessary, they just come up like, boom, don't do that, please. And in the beginning, it wasn't that way. When I first started setting boundaries, it was always a moment of anxiety or a couple moments of anxiety, right? Because my brain is perceiving conflict, right? I'm setting a boundary because I don't like something that's happening or I don't like the way something's heading, right? I can see it heading right across my boundaries. So when you set a boundary, it is kind of like you're perceiving conflict. And the boundary is supposed to prevent that from happening, right? It's supposed to stop things from getting to a place where you're completely, absolutely uncomfortable, right? And you have to defend yourself or something like that. I wasn't thinking physically, but either way. Sage Pup, good morning. I lost my train of thought again. Son of a gun. Yeah. I know exactly what I was talking about. Sandra, good to see you. Archie's mom says, I've had the same 3 canvas for years now. I can never finish them, but then I block color over. The canvas is so thick now. How long did you say? For years, huh? Well, I've heard that that's really the deal with acrylic painting is all the layers, right? It doesn't ever have to be done. And I've done other art a lot more than painting. And I'm one of those, and maybe all artists are this way, I'm not sure, but I'm one of those people where I could work on it forever. Like it's never truly done in my heart unless I force it to be that way. Unless I say, all right, I'm done. In fact, I do so intentionally because I don't want to toil over something forever. It feels like work at that point and not art. But, I think there could be a place for one painting, right? That just goes on and on and on. It could be an outlet of some sort. I can see that. I could definitely see that. Other restrained, good to see you, brother. Welcome in. Something more symbolic today instead of attempt at realism. All right, I've been thinking about that as well, dude. I'm a slow roller sometimes, so I will get there. Robin Miners, good morning. I am the Noise Opera. Hello, Miss Sunrise Dawn. Heck yeah, guys. KP and AZ, 26 years clean. In hindsight, that was the easy part. The hard part was dealing with the guilt of how you hurt people. In Harmony, years of your life was wasted. How many years of your life was wasted that you can't get back? Shame and guilt. We talk about shame and guilt quite a bit, and I think maybe I'll do one of those later this week. But congratulations on 26 years clean. Wow. That's a huge, big deal. That is a huge, big deal. Oh, I was talking about making boundaries out of hand. In the beginning, it seemed like conflict, right? Which I'm adverse to conflict. I've been in many conflicts in my life, right? But conflict is not what I want to be in. Conflict, if I see conflict coming, I don't like that, right? And there was a time in my life, specifically right after I punched that one guy I don't know if I've told that story more than once on this channel, but I punched a guy when I was like 18, and it became a very big deal. But I did so in defense of my girlfriend at the time. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but it kind of rocked my whole moral value system at the time, right? I thought that I was doing what I was supposed to do, but the law said that that was really bad. The law said that I was going to go to jail for that. So that kind of shook me. And from then on, conflict for me was very difficult. I no longer knew how to walk through conflict, where before I did it with my head held high, right? I knew exactly where I stood and exactly what I wasn't willing to stand for. After that event with the punching of the man, things weren't so clear. So conflict became something that I wasn't comfortable dealing with. And then insert trying to set boundaries. It became very difficult. And this probably was around the time where I learned about setting boundaries. And again, at first it seemed very difficult because I would recognize that I needed to set a boundary, but then it would be an anxious kind of fear moment, right? Like, I don't know how I can do that without waltzing right into the conflict I'm trying to avoid. And the only thing, there's nothing to it but to do it, right? I can think about it and fear it all the live long day, but really I need to get in there and try. Really I need to get in there and try. And maybe my boundary is not met well. Maybe my boundary is, met with scoffs, right? And if that's the case, screw you. You know what I mean? If that's the case, I'm just that much more armed, right? If that's the case, I know exactly where you stand. You have no respect for my boundaries, at least in this sense, right? So I've got no respect for you. And this becomes especially difficult when it comes to family members. But we're family, we're blood. We're literally always going to be we're always going to know each other. So we might as well treat each other properly. If your family is not treating you well, set some firm boundaries and walk away. I highly suggest this. The relationships that I have with my family today are of the quality they are directly due to boundaries that I set. And it was not always comfortable. In fact, it scarcely ever was a comfortable endeavor, setting boundaries with family. But I tell you what, just because they're family doesn't mean they know how to treat you. Just because they're family doesn't really mean anything other than we share the same blood, right? You have to teach everyone how to treat you. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people just treat you right, which is cool. That's a bonus, right? But not everyone's going to do that. You have to teach a lot of people how to treat you. And that's where boundaries come in. I will say, if you're in a position where you think you should set a boundary, but it's a little scary, forge ahead. Go ahead with it, right? Throw that caution to the wind and just do your best. And every time you set a boundary, it'll get better. But remember, we're not setting a boundary to win. It's not a win or a loss, right? We're setting a boundary to say, this is where I draw the line. And then the second part of setting your boundary is observing what happens. Does the person step right on my boundary? Does the person ignore it? Does the person respect it, right? What's the response to the boundary? There's only one proper answer to a boundary being set, and it's respecting the boundary. If I try to find a way over, around, under, through, I'm not respecting the boundary. And often this is, especially with people from our walks of life, people that aren't doing the work are going to have a really hard time seeing past themselves. People that aren't doing the work are going to have a real hard time respecting boundaries because they're not even going to notice they're being set. Interesting stuff. Now, I want to talk about Lord of the Rings a little bit more. Gail, what's going on? Lifeboat Live. Yesterday, Tommy gave me a lifeboat trophy for being 4 years alcohol-free. That was the highlight of my day. Thank you, Tommy. My dad's pretty cool, huh? Yeah, he dropped this trophy off so I can do similar things. We recognize that sobriety, recovery, this path that we're walking is not the easiest path. In fact, it's far from it, right? So any amount of time that you can get under your belt is a big friggin' deal. Dude, in 4 years, that's a lot. That is a lot. More than I've ever had. More than I've ever had. Sage Pup says, I have a hard time with conflict and boundaries. I never want to hurt or upset anyone. Sage Pup, if you're needing to set a boundary, doesn't that mean that you're upset? right? Or someone has hurt or upset you, I wouldn't sacrifice my own well-being or my own happiness for someone else's. And I mean, there's an exception to every rule, right? But if I'm doing this all the time, I'm not keeping any space for myself. I would encourage you. Well, I mean, you say you're having a hard time with conflict and boundaries. I think that this probably has a whole lot more to do with how you feel about yourself than how you feel about conflict or boundaries. And I don't want to tell you what to do, but how I'll ask you a question instead. How is your self-care routine? How is your self-love practice? Have you heard of this? Sage Pup says, that's why I live on the West Coast and my family lives on the East Coast. I can relate with that. That made me laugh a little bit in my heart. I know all about this separation of family. B. Hendricks asks, what if the boundary someone has set is absolutely ridiculous? Well, is it ridiculous to you, to them, to everyone? I think that's very subjective, B. The boundary may mean everything to them. And, another question comes up for me, B. Is this boundary stopping you from getting what you want? Why? If you think it's ridiculous, it shouldn't matter unless it's stopping you from doing something that you want to do, right? So I'm just curious. I wonder exactly what's going on. Now, boundaries are our own, right? We don't necessarily have to understand each other's boundaries. We just have to know that it's a boundary, right? And it's not really for me to judge. If someone's setting ridiculous boundaries, maybe that's a sign that I don't necessarily want to hang out with them, right? Maybe that's a sign if I have to abide by these ridiculous set of rules, maybe I don't want to be in your presence, kind of thing, right? On the other foot, like as someone that's having a boundary set with them, like on the receiving end of the boundary, I also, as that person, I can respect the boundary, but also like take notes and hit the road, right? I don't have to hang out in the box that they put me in. Does that make sense, right? What's going on, James Collins? Welcome in, welcome in. Millie's pretty great, isn't she? I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the dandelion. Brianna Miller says, sometimes family treats you the worst because they feel like they can. This is a great point. Or they feel like they can get away with it because they don't think you'll leave. Well, you gotta prove them wrong. I disappeared out of my family's life multiple times, and I don't suggest you do this, right? At the time, I was doing my best. I didn't know any other way, right? And they had already dropped me off at the homeless shelter, so I didn't think that they cared that much. But it turns out they did. Turns out they regret that. Peter Birdsall says, a real friend will correct you and tell you the hard truths. For sure. Absolutely. And, they may not understand when these hard truths are initially set, right? Boundaries are definitely a point of contention, but it is also an opportunity for us to understand each other better, right? If a boundary is needing to be set, we're already not understanding each other, right? We're missing something important. Otherwise, the boundary wouldn't be being set, right? And if I'm setting absolutely ridiculous boundaries, maybe it's worth having a conversation with me, right? But also, you might be surprised. Maybe that boundary does have a purpose, but also maybe they're just having a power trip. And if that's the case, screw them. That's how I feel. I have very, very little patience, and that's not a good thing. But I often, rather than kind of playing along and beating around the bush, if I know what's going on, I don't have the patience for that. I don't have the patience for that. And maybe I should. I try not to use that word should, but something I could work on. It's something I could work on. Kristen Melinda, good morning. Grateful Glow. Oh, by the way, speaking of, can we get some ones up for Matrix Rabbit and his family? Matrix is going through some stuff right now. It's not my story to tell, so I'm not going to talk about it, but please think of Matrix Rabbit. Please send your hearts out to Matrix. Love you, dude. If you're watching. I mean, I love you either way, but yes, I've heard this, says Sage Pup, but I don't have a self-care routine. I've always felt like I was to take care of everyone and put myself last. I don't know why I feel like this. Well, I have to say that's probably not serving you very well, is it, Sage? And you know, it's your thing. You can do whatever you'd like, but I imagine that if you kind of put together a self-care routine, and when I say a self-care routine, maybe just like once a week, you know, take an hour or two to just do something for you, right? And not think about other people. Maybe you do your nails, maybe you brush your hair and just do all that stuff, or maybe you just relax, right? And put your feet up and leave them there for a little while. Read a nice book, whatever makes your heart sing. I would suggest maybe once a week, take an hour or two to treat yourself nice, right? And that's what self-love comes down to. And it can take many forms, but treat yourself nice, right? Do something for you. And I think that you'll see a perspective inside you shift slowly over time, because self-love, I mean, everything that I give to the world comes from here. So if I'm trying to take care of other people, but I'm not taking care of myself, I end up struggling with boundaries. I end up struggling with, I mean, I could struggle with an endless list of things, right? But things are unbalanced in this case. And again, I'm not necessarily telling you what to do, but I would suggest trying a little self-care once or twice a week. I think you'll see a magnificent difference within as well as without. And that's what I have to say about that. Now, Brown and Miller says the lifeboat is my self-care routine. That's hilarious. I was talking to my dad about my Gandalf metaphor today, and he hit me with some knowledge. Did you guys know the ring is a metaphor for addiction? I mean, think about it. Think about Gollum. Think about Frodo. You know, you possess this ring, and when you carry it, when you pick it up, everything around you turns to crap, right? Everything around you just turns to dust. Everything just dies. Everything, your passion, right? It tears your whole life apart. And it's really, you can't put it down, right? You don't want to put it down. It's whispering to you, my precious. And there's a scene in Moria where Frodo and Gandalf are discussing Gollum. And they're discussing pity. And Gandalf says, you know, pity's what stayed Bilbo's hand. Pity's the reason that Gollum still lives, basically. And maybe I'm getting scenes mixed up, but there's a scene where Frodo says, I have to believe that he can be saved, or I have to believe that there's hope for Gollum, is what he's saying. And what that is such a deep and heavy scene. What he's saying is Gollum carried the ring, and he is the way that he is now because of that. I'm now carrying the ring, and I have to believe that there's salvation for him, because if there's not for me. That's pretty heavy. That's some heavy, heavy stuff right there. I had never noticed that. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch The Fellowship, because I just watched it, and that scene goes over my head every friggin' time. But that's some stuff right there. That is a metaphor for addiction, I have to say. Fly Famil, good to see you. You like that, Rocket Queen? Yeah, my dad's pretty great. He hits me with the knowledge. James Collins, how are you today, dude? Good to see you. You know, I don't know what else I have to say about boundaries. That was about half a show there, but I mean, that's the deal. Do we have a better handle on boundaries? Does anyone have questions about boundaries, or thoughts, intrigues, comments? Trauma Talk on Surviving Together, live 6 p.m. Eastern. Special guest, guys. Make sure to check that out. Yeah, I have to limit my Diddy content, Fly Famil. It's hard for me. It's like the same reason, like when my grandma's watching her Special Victims Unit and like whatever shows she watches, it's hard for me to watch that stuff too. For the same reason, it's dramatizing like real terrible things that are real in the real world, you know? It's hard for me. But I'm super duper empathic, and having the ability to protect myself isn't enough. Like sometimes I just don't want to be around that stuff. I don't want to have to protect myself. James Collins makes a great point. Self-care can be anything that puts your wants and needs first. It shows the world you care about yourself, and others will too. Yeah, it's interesting. We pick up on these signs whether we're conscious of it or not. But when I see someone that takes care of themselves, I notice, whether it's in words or not in my head, right? Whether I realize I'm noticing or not, but like it's that box is checked in my head, like, oh, this person takes care of themselves, right? It's interesting. I used to never think about or worry about stuff like this, but the older I get, it the more I'm like over here filing my nails and stuff. Like I never thought I'd be a nail filer, but my nails are round and beautiful. But I don't know what. Maybe I'm just getting older and I care how I look and feel, and I literally feel better after doing self-care and self-love. After I brush my teeth, do my shower, do my nails, whatever I'm doing, clip my toenails. Like maybe I'm just soaking my feet. Maybe I'm just putting my feet up and laying my head back. Whatever kind of self-love I do, I immediately feel better afterwards. It brightens up my day. It lets the sun shine in. And that just goes to show what kind of sensitive creatures we are. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. Gail says, I paint to keep my mind and hands busy. The day I decided to quit drinking alcohol, a week later, I put down the nicotine. Let's go. So I'm nicotine free for 4 years. Holy crap. I'm still not nicotine free. Where'd my trophy go? Wow. That's so crazy. Nicotine, and I've been told, is the hardest one to quit. My mom and my dad are both ex-heroin addicts. And they both told me after quitting heroin that nicotine was more difficult. My mom successfully put nicotine down. My dad and I hit the vape now and again. But it's wild. It's wild. This nicotine doesn't seem like a mightily destructive drug, right? A fun fact about nicotine, it originally was used as a pesticide. If you ever smoking a cigarette and you see some ants, if you blow smoke on those ants, they freak out. I'm not saying torture little bugs. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you were to do so, it makes sense why it was a pesticide. Also, from what I understand, insects' lungs are like our veins. They're like throughout their entire body. So if a bug is to walk into a cloud of something, it instantly is throughout its whole bloodstream. So that's interesting as well. Very, very interesting. My brain is full of completely useless knowledge such as that. Your dog is a habitual line stepper. Great practice with boundaries. Dogs are difficult. It's interesting setting boundaries with something that can't understand English. It's interesting setting boundaries with something that's not human. But it can be done, and I have faith in you, B. Although it might just speak to the force of will, the strength inside your dog. I bet you he or she is a character. My pleasure surviving together. Thanks for thanking me. It makes me feel good. Like I know, I mean, I'd be doing this either way, but y'all expressing your gratitude just warms me up. It just warms me the heck up, and I have no control over that. It just does. Brianna says, I'm still figuring out how to not feel like a jerk when I'm setting boundaries. Maybe that's just the people pleaser in me. No, that's normal. That's how I shouldn't say that. That's how it worked for me too. It was very difficult in the beginning, but we're perceiving conflict, right? That's what made it difficult for me. And it's not exactly conflict that we're jumping into. We're jumping into or walking into, whatever you want to look at it as, an opportunity to understand each other better, right? Because I'm like presenting a fork in the road for the other person. And sometimes I think about it this way. I don't know if it's productive or not, but I'm presenting a fork in the road, right? They can choose to respect my boundary or choose to not. They can choose to try and understand what I'm telling them, or they can choose to focus on what they've got going on in the face of me trying to set a boundary, right? So like really, It doesn't have to be a big conflict, especially because I can just walk away, right? If they choose the wrong fork, if they choose the disrespectful, self-centered fork in the road, then I don't have to put up with this, right? I can just file that away and then, okay, this person doesn't want to respect my boundaries, file, and I can wash my hands of it, at least for the moment. I think that in my mind, it was really scary because I fantasized about or pictured these long drawn out spats happening because my boundaries weren't respected, or the idea of not having my boundaries respected became this big thing, like, oh, this person and I are gonna, well, I mean, I'm much better off without the people in my life that weren't respecting my boundaries. And it may have been a difficult path to get to that understanding, right? I can't tell you how many people I've cut out of my life. I used to have a ton of friends, and I don't miss them. In fact, I posted a funny thing on my Facebook the other day. I think it said, shout out to my old friends. I hella miss those snakes or something like that. Miss getting into trouble with those snakes. I thought that was pretty funny because my old friends aren't my friends anymore for good reason. But sometimes I do think fondly of the trouble we would get into. But this is a part of the journey, Brianna, and I have faith that you are making progress and that you'll continue to do so. You're definitely capable of doing this. And I'm still a people pleaser, right? I definitely want to serve. It's a part of me. It's in my DNA. And if I can do it, you can 100% do it. I believe in you. I believe in you. James Collins says, by setting boundaries clearly from a place of love, you protect yourself and the people around you, and teaches others how to do that as well. Absolutely. We can't forget the example aspect, right? By moving through the world in this way, by expressing what we learn here, we're also setting an example for other people. And I bet you a ton of people wish that they could set boundaries effectively. And there's nothing to it but to do it, right? Just practice, just take a leap, right? Just a small jump and try it. Sage Pup, you are welcome here. You are 100% welcome here. I hear that, Gail. It's like a train wreck. You can't stop watching because it just keeps exploding, It keeps going through another brick wall. It's a runaway train. Yeah, the stuff my dad's, I'm not going to steal his thunder, but pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Kids are not known for their intelligence, I tell you what. They're known for their angsty, emotional-driven decisions. Lacey Silver, good morning. This is some spicy coffee. KP and AZ, I can 100% agree with the nicotine. That is one habit I've not been able to kick. There is hope for us, but I tell you what, I'm not in a hurry to put the nicotine down. It's a crutch that serves me well right now. When I was smoking cigarettes, about 15 years into it, my lungs started to really not like doing stairs. And that was the point where I thought, maybe I should switch to vape or something, because I'm like a young man that can't go up and down stairs without breathing heavily. And I have to say, the vape does not do that to my lungs. Stairs are not the bane of my existence. I exercise daily, and I exercise pretty darn hard. So I would say that the vape is an upgrade, but I'm not a scientist, right? I don't really exactly know. My nurse friends all tell me that this is worse for me. Literally everyone that I know that is a medical professional of some sort tells me that this is worse. It feels better. But it's on my radar, but not on the top of the list. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I think tobacco still has a place in my life. I don't smoke it ever, really. But like if I was in like a ceremony, or like, I think the way that the Native Americans use tobacco is pretty cool. I'm not opposed to having some ceremonial tobacco. Nine years old. Wow, that's a long time. I started when I was 14, I think. And I was pretty much doing a pack a day for 15, 16 years, something about that. And I mean, then there's the crack smoking and the constant drinking and there was a lot. I did a lot to my body. And I am super grateful and quite frankly, a little astounded that I made it out in one piece, that my brain still works good, right? That I'm a good person even, right? I count my blessings. Ceremonial tobacco doesn't contain the additives, says Puka Vista. I agree. I believe they call it mopacho. I'm not an expert, though. All right, guys, if I stay on here much longer, I'm going to butt into my dad's time. So I'm going to have to shut her down. I really, really appreciate every single one of you. The crew makes this thing work. You guys are the boat, and I appreciate every single one of you. Awake by the Looking Glass. Good to see you. Welcome in. Yeah, I'm going to shut her down, though. My dad's hiccups. My dad's going live in about 10 minutes. Doing some Diddy verse, so give him a shout. Show him some love. And, I think today my ending message is going to be, show yourself some love today. I think that there's a lot of people pleasers here on the boat. I am definitely one of them. But, let's please one person especially today. Let's please ourselves. Out of all the time that we've spent pleasing other folks, we can do something for us, right? Just a small thing. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a whole day endeavor, right? We can just spend an hour, 30 minutes even, just doing something for us. Because you deserve it, right? Go out there and do something for you today. You deserve it. Hit that like, subscribe, and the bell for notifications for me. And have a great day, folks. I'll see you later today. We're going to paint about between 1 and 2 p.m. 100% no getting out of it today, I promise, all right? Flick Fox, it's always a pleasure to see you. I don't know if I shouted you out earlier. All right, guys, I'm out. Captain Calhoun. Oh, no, Miss Sunrise Dawn. Let's also get some ones up for Miss Sunrise Dawn and Matrix Rabbit. Millie says, how about we give each other something nice to do for the other person? We could do that, too. We could do that, too. We could give like little be nice to yourself homework. Zen Wen, Miss Dragon. Thanks, Zen. Thank you so much. And that's all right, Sage. You don't have to be sober to be aboard the boat. It is all good. We meet people where they're at. Complete abstinence is not something that a lot of people can get with, right? It's not an achievable goal for a lot of folks. So wherever you're at, Sage, I'm glad you're here. Welcome aboard. I hope you have a great day, and I will be back later to paint a little. All right, y'all. I'm hitting the button. Peace to the nub.